quiet the noise and regain control. But usually, the harder you wrestle with an anxious thought, the louder it becomes. Actively fighting the chaos often just generates more of it. To see why this internal noise is so persistent, we have to look at a journey taken on a dirt road in ancient India. It's a story about a pond, a thirst, and the physical reality of how things actually settle. Thousands of years ago, Mahatma Buddha was traveling on foot between villages with a group of his disciples. It was a brutally scorching afternoon, and the intense, relentless sun had turned the trek into an ordeal. Parched from the long walk, Buddha asked his disciple Ananda to head back to a small pond they passed earlier to fetch some drinking water. Ananda returned to the water's edge, but found the sight transformed. A caravan of heavy bullock carts had just rolled through the shallow pond. The hooves and wooden wheels had churned the silt, pulling up thick dirt and rotting leaves from the bottom. The water was a murky brown sludge. Ananda returned empty-handed, telling Buddha the water was undrinkable. He insisted they abandon the spot and immediately start searching for a flowing river instead. When faced with a clouded situation, the immediate reflex is often to run away or search for an external fix. Buddha simply smiled, rejecting the idea of moving on. He refused to look for a new water source. He told Ananda to sit down in the shade, rest, and then, eventually, return to that exact same muddy pond. For 30 minutes, Ananda sat in the silence. He waited with visible reluctance, watching the sign dip lower while they sat beside a source of water he believed was useless. For a mind that wants to solve a problem, doing nothing is often the most difficult instruction to follow. Finally, Ananda trudged back to the pond, expecting to find the same dark, undrinkable mess. Instead, he found the water was glass clear. This diagram shows the physics of what happened. These jagged particles represent the mud suspended chaotically in the water. Gravity simply took over. Without anyone stirring, the heavy mud drifted to the bottom, leaving the surface pure and undisturbed. Ananda filled his vessel and returned to his master, bewildered that the water had cleared without him doing a single thing to clean it. Buddha noted that the mud only required time and stillness. By leaving the pond alone, the water corrected itself. The philosopher Osho points to this story as a framework for navigating modern psychological stress. In this view, the human mind functions much like that forest pond. The bullock carts are the daily stressors, the deadlines, the conflicts, and the anxieties that roll through our lives and churn up our internal sediment. If Ananda had jumped into the pond to manually push the dirt down, his own movements would have sent the silt exploding back toward the surface. Wrestling with negative thoughts works the same way. The struggle itself is often what keeps the chaos suspended in your mind. Osho's alternative is a state called Sakshi Bhav, or becoming an objective observer. When mental turmoil hits, the practice is to step back from the edge and sit quietly. Instead of fighting or judging the thoughts, you simply watch them exist, refusing to jump in and stir the water. Negative thoughts have their own weight. If they aren't constantly stirred up by our engagement, they eventually lose their momentum. When the splashing stops, the mud eventually has nowhere to go but down, leaving the mind naturally clear and still.